Jim Miller here, National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Dan Gable Museum, doing quick takes off the mat with Grandview head wrestling coach Nick Mitchell, who I see's had a nice facial growth right there. Man, how's the wife and kids? They cool with that?
No, she doesn't really. The wife doesn't like it, but I told her I kind of feel like a prisoner right now with all this going on, so I'm going to try to look like one too. So, see.
Well, what's it like, man? It's been, things are different. You can't go work out. You can't. Tell us, how has it been different for like dealing with your athletes and then recruiting as well?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we're trying to be creative, trying to figure out how to do our jobs right now. Really, you just don't know that you get in a routine and you know what you're doing, and then all of a sudden one day this happens and you don't know what you're doing. So, really, with our guys, we've been trying to stay in touch with them as much as possible. We're doing Zoom meetings, just trying to do lots of phone calls, texts. Just keeping up to date on what's going on, figuring out when they're going to be back in Des Moines. Go through that, and then the other part is, like you said, you can't really work out right now, and so our strength coach has done some stuff. He's trying to figure out, okay, here's what you can do if you have some equipment. Here's what you can do if you have a little equipment, and here's what you can do if you have nothing. And
wow.
Most of those guys fall into some category, so that helps. And then recruiting, man, same thing. It's been lots of Zoom meetings. Which surprisingly has been better than I thought it would be. And one thing I've said lots of times is, a lot of the high school kids right now, they don't love talking on the phone, and I don't love talking to them on the phone that much either. But the Zoom meetings have been good because you can see some reaction. Are they digging this? Do they agree with what you're talking about? Are they on their phone tweeting while I'm talking to them? Or so that's been good. And the only setback there is just, we love getting kids on campus and really trying to get to know them and them get to know us, and we haven't been able to do that. So, yeah, we're all in the same boat, and so we're just making do with what we have.
So you're keeping up on the social media stuff. Back in the day, I loved the landline.
Right.
I was recruiting. Now, you don't know, Nick wrestled for me at Warburg, went to school at Johnston High School, 3-time place winner, I believe, and coached with me for 8 years.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we go way back, but back when I was calling, I'd call his home landline because I usually get to talk to the mom, and I was good with the mom, right? And so, but then I found out toward the end of my career, the kids weren't answering the phone, so I had to learn how to text.
Right. Yeah.
And now the way I understand it, they don't answer. Snapchat is communicating through Snapchat, and now this Zoom thing.
Yeah.
So
I know I'm trying to keep up, man. That's why I hire young assistant coaches.
Yeah.
Just
good
let
idea.
me know,
man.
what should I do?
Well, so started the program at Grandview.
Yep.
You've won 9 straight national champions. You won the first one after 4 years.
Yep.
Won 9 straight now. So I guess my question was, I know it's hard every year, man. It's hard every year to win a national title. I mean, dude, one thing, I've never heard you make a prediction, and why would you? Mm-hmm. And, but how much harder was it starting from scratch? I mean, now I know it's hard, but was it a lot harder starting from scratch at the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, creating a culture when you have no culture, there's that part is tough. Getting all the cogs in place, not just guys on the team, but getting the right coaches, getting the support system from our administration, making sure they understand what we're trying to do, getting the buy-in there, and then just getting to a place where guys on the team genuinely feel like it can happen there. And we were fortunate enough, we had a national champ the very first year of the program, so guys could see that you could win there, but we were 8th, 9th, and 5th the first 3 years, and so we were still a long ways from winning it. And so to get them over that hump of feeling like this is some unattainable thing as a team that couldn't happen, that year that we won it in 2012, we won the national duels that year, and obviously that's a big step in the right direction. But it really, even for me, I was like, man, this can happen, because you hope it can, and you're thinking it can, and you're always working towards it, but 8th, 9th, and 5th, that's a long ways from first. Yeah. And so when we won those first national duels, I was like, okay, we can do this. And our guys, they thought the same thing. Yeah. And so now it's an expectation. They know it can happen. There's no reason it can't.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I know you're always trying to teach them how to wrestle better, but teaching them or getting, I don't know if you're teaching them, but convincing them to think at a higher level.
Yeah.
It takes even more energy most of the time, you know.
And that goes back to what you're saying. Like every year is tough because you can. There's so many traps you can fall into, and one of those is just maybe now they just think it's going to happen. It's just going to happen because we're Grandview, and you're just going to walk in and they're going to hand us the trophy. And so for us, really, the goal was never just to win a title. We always wanted to put ourselves in a place where we could compete every year. But even now, like for our guys individually, the goal is not to win a title. The goal is not to win a team title. The ultimate goal is just let's find out how good we can be.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know like what's the best version of you look like on the mat? What's the best version of each team look like? And we talk about that a lot. Where if the goal is only to win, then we could win. If we would have won this past year by 3 points, then we're still the national champs. But that's not good if you can win by 74 points or whatever we won by this year. So if you can win by this much and you're only winning by this much and the goal has not been accomplished.
Right.
And so that's really been the bigger thing for us is forget about the end point of what we're trying to win or trophies we're trying to get or certain titles we want. I just want to know what's the best version look like, and that's what we chase every year.
And the winning will take care of itself
for sure.
If you try to be as good as, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
For sure.
Well, you were on the second national championship that I coached, and the most unique lineup of my career. I coached 37 years, and we had. I know you start thinking about it. You talk about a ragtag group, and my question is going to be: to every experience you have as a coach helps you, in some way, and I got to believe that. Being on a team, I'll just quickly run through some guys. You had a guy named Zach Wigline who won 2 national titles, straight-laced, very good student, the grinder, right? Then you had Stas Keitan, who was Russian-born, went to junior college. This guy he was unbelievable athlete, but he wondered why we had to weigh in so many times. Why we got to do all these dual meets, coach? All that kind of stuff. And then you had a guy named Ben Shane, who was hair down to his back and wasn't the hardest trainer we had, but when the lights came on, he won 2 national championships, right? And then you had a guy named Ryan Hess, who was a Louisiana guy, already married, I had a baby, but kind of a good leader, and I'm trying to think of the lineup. Ben Jobjan, who was a great student, went to med school. You had
Brandon Holmberg,
Minnesota guy. Probably the only Minnesota guy I think I might have ever coached, because Augsburg usually snapped him up. But Holmberg, and then Josh Dodd, who was a little town Iowa guy who went to Minnesota University. Yeah. So big university guy, came back. Yep. And then this Tennessee guy, this kind of a hick. I mean, I hope Chris O'Rear's watching this, because I don't get to talk to him that much. Chris O'Rear, guy from Tennessee, he came to Wartburg for an interview. He kept saying, "How y'all doing?" Stuff like that. And dude, I never thought he'd make the team, but the guy's a 2-time All-American. Yep. Guy did great. He was your roommate.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, man, that was a crazy group.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so part of that is those guys, I mean, you go through that line, Chris Smith was in that lineup too.
Yeah, Chris Smith.
He was one of the, that was the first year he'd been in the lineup. And he's one of my best friends, and I still give him a hard time because I think he was scared every time he walked out on the mat back then. But he came through, then the next year he was All-American.
And staying on a guy like Chris Smith, you always had to have somebody like Chris. He was kind of logical. He's kind of like,
right.
I never worried about that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe him and Jobjan's only 2 guys I really didn't worry about.
Steady. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so that group was, a crazy mix of guys. But the funny thing is I was really good friends with a lot of those guys. Almost all of them. I still keep in touch with almost all of them, and some of those guys are still really good friends of mine. And I think when you fast forward that into the coaching world, you got to learn you can't coach everybody the same. Right. I think that's one thing that obviously I saw it that year. Is you clearly were not coaching us all the same, and you talk about Ben Shane. I was I like to work. I wanted to put the time in. I was probably more like on the Wigline idea of like let's grind it out, man. Let's just put this work in every day. And then you had Stas, who he didn't want to wrestle half the time, but when he did, it was going to be really good. And then you had Shane, who was like, I'll just put the work in when I feel like it's time to put the work in. And so that was frustrating for guys like us sometimes, and I can remember like a morning workout, me and Ben Shane, like face to face, because we're doing a plate workout, we're running stairs, we got 45-pound plates, and he's got a 25-pound plate, and he's a weight above me, and he's like, come on, and I'm like, dude, get a real plate, and then you cheer me on. And so here we are, next thing we're nose to nose, and luckily nothing happened. But, so it was a good reminder, though, you don't have to coach everybody the same. And the big thing there is you can't coach guys just how you want to be coached, because if that was the case, and I didn't mind getting yelled at. I didn't mind you getting in my face and, and giving it to me a little bit. That was good for me. I needed it. But not every guy responds.
Right.
And so
100%.
That's something that I really try to impress upon my coaches too, is don't just coach the way you want to be coached. But hey, we got guys that come from all over the country, all kinds of backgrounds, racial backgrounds, financial backgrounds. Everybody just comes from a different place. Our job is to get to know these guys, get to know where they come from, and build some trust and coach them the way they need to be coached, not how I want to coach them.
Right. And the key point on that, and whether, it could be something that you're the manager of a business. You're going to have all kinds of different people working for you, but the key is that year we won the national title, and it was hard.
Right.
I mean, it was hard. We had to come back from a big deficit, and that group they came together as a team, and so no matter what you're doing, the bottom line, we came together, won the national championship, and that was one of the wildest celebrations I've ever been a part of.
For sure.
Yeah,
and I think that, you say that here we are, a bunch of guys with way different backgrounds, different beliefs, different ideas of what training should look like, but we were really all on the same page on what we wanted that year. We came together. We really did come together. And it was probably the first example to me of how important the closeness of the team has, how important that is when you start chasing titles and being great year to year, because probably, wrestling's selfish, and I was selfish. Probably the first time in my whole career that winning a team title was more important to me than winning an individual title. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to win pretty bad.
For sure.
So that was
for sure
dynamic.
Very cool. Passions outside of wrestling, and I don't, some guys are easy. We've had Mark Schwab in here. He's doing the guitar because he loves it. He's great at it. He puts a lot of time in, and Ryan Morningstar we talked about raising pigs. He's really good at it. Championships, And so I'm thinking Nick Mitchell, who I know really well, but I'm not sure what's out there.
I think my passions outside of wrestling are similar to yours.
Yeah? Nothing?
Not much, huh? No, man. So, I've been kind of thinking about this because he asked me the other day about this, and I was talking to Reedy, my assistant, and he goes, well, you're really good at chipping over the green, which means I suck at golf. I mean, I'd love to play golf, but it's frustrating because, wrestling, you get frustrated and you do it harder. Well, that doesn't work very well in golf, so I'm not a very good golfer, but I like to play. I like spending time in my yard. I get a little bit competitive with my yard, and it doesn't look great right now. I've got some dandelions. I'm not.
You competing with the neighbors, or
a little bit? It's a silent. They might not know we're competing. We're competing. So the guy across the street is good, Jim, and he used to be assistant coach at Iowa State basketball for Johnny Orr. That guy's got it together, man. I just can't freaking catch that guy. So I'll get there. I think it's set the bar high. But I like doing that. I like working out in the yard, and and the other thing is with my job, I'm gone a lot and I'm busy. And so my other thing is that I feel like I owe it to my family to when I have time away from wrestling is I got to be with them. I got to be present with my girls. They're Bryn, my oldest, is just about to turn 9, and Paige, our youngest, just turned 6, and that's a full-time job in itself if you make it. So just trying to be there, be around and be really present with them and be a good example of what a guy should look like in their lives. So.
Well, I see them at all kinds of events of yours. I mean, do you have any indication that wrestling, I mean, they like wrestling, but
right.
do you kind of steer away from the competition in wrestling for the girls?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. So this year we have our little youth and high school club, the Viking Wrestling Club, and this year for the first time we did a little kids, and it was called the Little Vikes, and Coach Reedy ran it, and I came in and helped him a few times, which I know he probably appreciated because it was like babysitting session in there. But I brought the girls and they had fun with it, but we didn't do very much real wrestling. We played a lot of games. We passed out some candy. You know, we just made them, we just wanted them to love wrestling. And that was kind of the goal early on is if you can get as many kids to associate wrestling with fun at an early age and make it fun, then they'll stick with it for the long haul. And that was the idea. So they thought wrestling was fun, but they haven't really done any wrestling yet. And they're not very tough. They're really
They haven't got cross-faced yet?
Not even close. And the first time that happens, it'll be game over. So I think gymnastics is probably more their future.
Well, one thing I know you're good at that we share some is public speaking, and I know you've done a lot of it. And, you know, I don't know, I kind of look at it like you're still coaching, but just a different audience.
Yeah.
You know?
I really do like it, you know, and it's funny. It's one of those things where a lot of people talk about that as being like the scariest thing, you know, getting up and talking in front of people. And it can be intimidating, but usually we're talking about things that we're passionate about and things that we love to do. And I love helping coaches. I love helping other wrestlers get better. And I just love helping people think about, like, how do you chase greatness, you know? And so I've worked with car dealerships. I've worked with real estate groups. And yeah, it's not the same, but it's the same. You know, it's that same thing. Like, how good can you be? What's the best version of you look like? And it's fun. You know, just yesterday I actually did Chris Ortner, he's the head coach at Cedar Falls. He had me on a Zoom meeting with his team. Yeah. And so he doesn't have like the monthly subscription. So if you do these, they last 40 minutes and you time out. We went through it twice. We were 40 minutes, and 40 minutes, and man, these kids asked good questions, and it was fun. I mean, we could have kept going, really, and we were fired up, and I enjoy doing that. I love just talking about the sport, but not just that, but like how do you bring a team together? How do you get to that pinnacle? How do you find out how good you can be? And it's, to me, that's easy to do.
Yeah, man, you're talking about achieving at a higher level, whatever the scenario is.
Right,
yeah.
For sure.
So very cool.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, usually we ask us, hey man, do you have any funny stories, but something in wrestling? If you got one, shoot it out.
Man, so we go back a long ways. Yeah. And there's, I mean, I don't know if there's like certain specific, you know, this one, but I'll give you some highlights. I know my freshman year, I wrestled at the JV conference tournament, which I'm super proud of. I got 4th place. And I did not wrestle. I didn't find out how good I could be that year.
No, you didn't.
I kind of cashed in.
I believe you were 3rd string.
I was. Yeah. And so after the end of the tournament, after I took 4th, my dad was like chewing my butt, like letting me have it. And I think you were coming in to take your turn, and you saw that my dad took care of it. And so I realized then that you were really similar to what I grew up with as far as some tough love. And so that time I got let off the hook a little bit. I can think about, man, there's been a lot of those. One story that always stands out to me, like an intense moment in the room that we kind of laughed about afterwards. It was that year, our junior year, when we won the national title. It was one of those days we had like an intense practice. I mean, and after practice, we're just walking, you know, and everyone's walking, and it's like, we're ready to go, you know, just kind of looking around, and it's like a bunch of bulls like just snorting, what do we got next? And you wrestled a lot back then, and you'd been wrestling probably with me, probably letting me win, making me feel good about myself. And all of a sudden you're against the wall, and you're like, you know, and fired up. All of a sudden you're like hitting the wall. And so next thing you know, everybody in the room, we're punching the wall in the wrestling room. The whole freaking team. Like, I don't know, it was like one of those genuine moments. It wasn't like, hey guys, let's go hit the wall.
It was padded.
It was padded, luckily. Okay. It wouldn't have mattered, I don't think. But just out of the blue, all of a sudden, here we are, 45, 50 guys, whatever we had, up against the wall. And I'm like, okay, if I can get to the point where one of my teams is just genuinely so fired up after practice, and we're punching walls at the same time, I've done my job. So that was
totally spontaneous, but I was so glad afterward. I'm talking to the other coaches. So glad nobody got hurt, like broke their hand or something. But
for sure,
you know, you never know.
Yep.
You've won nine national titles in a row, and I know I've never heard you make a prediction. 10 titles is the record. Yep. No one's won 10 national titles in a row, and so I know you probably already got this question a lot. But I mean, this is really not a question, but how do you handle that, or is it any? I assume you're going to tell me business as usual, but it's not going to be. It's going to be national news.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't feel any different going into this season than I have since we won the first one. And to be honest, I probably felt more pressure after the first one, and some of it was because we'd never done it before. I didn't want it to end. You know, that second year started, and it's like, okay, you're not the champs anymore. But that first year, I was like, just loving it. I was like, this feels so good. We're number one. You know, we did it. And then the next year rolls around, and you're like, all right, we gotta do this again. Where now, you know, it is business as usual. And you know, so this past year, we had Evan Hansen. He won 4 titles in a row. And I think one thing that really helps me is dealing with guys like that, where we were able to talk a lot about, hey, there's some pressure, obviously, when you're chasing your 4th title as an athlete. It's a huge deal, you know. And the thing I could always remind him is, you know what? You never won the 2020 title. Right. You're after something you've never done before. Right. And I think that's the best way to approach it. And maybe fortunately for us, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but we don't have any returning champs coming back this year for the first time in a long time. And so we've got a bunch of guys that, yeah, as a team, we could win our 10th, but we've never won the 2021 title. And we've got a bunch of guys that have never won the title. And so we're all after something that we've never had before. And I think you look at it that way, and there's no reason ever you should let some kind of mediocrity or some kind of pressure or some kind of streak situation come into play, because this is all new. It's a new year. It's a new trophy. We're not defending last year's trophy. We're after the next thing.
And you're never gonna have to defend it because it's already won it. Yeah. It's never gonna get taken away.
Right. Yep. So that's the best thing is that, and I heard somebody say that a long time ago, and it's you don't defend a trophy, you don't defend a title. I mean, it's not the Stanley Cup. We don't pass it on to the next thing. Yeah. You know, we're keeping that trophy. Yeah. It's going to stay in the trophy case. So we're just going to try to win the next one, and then the one after that.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Okay. Quick takes off the mat. Dan Gable Museum with Nick Mitchell.